Scotland is an ancient and wise land, one from which we can learn many lessons. I hope that this Scots Guide to Simple Living will inspire you to slow down, draw nearer to nature, and embrace a simpler life. My name is Kat, if we haven't met before, and I will be your guide on this journey. So the first thing on our Scots Guide to Simple Living is to embrace the great outdoors. Now, I know many cultures of course do embrace the outdoors, but there is just something a bit wild and a bit different about Scotland that I haven't encountered in other countries. The weather here is really wild for a start, and the terrain is also pretty rough. Now, I don't want to overly romanticise it because people really struggle to survive in these conditions. However, I do think that it's built a really tough nation of folks who are able to feel content with less, who are able to just enjoy the simple things in life. A perfect modern day example of this is if you go hiking and camping out in the Highlands. We have these little huts called bothies, which are really simple kind of stone shacks, I guess, that people can shelter in when they're out in the wilds. Now, they are very simple. They usually have some shelves for beds that you put your sleeping bag down on. There's often a fireplace with maybe wood to make a fire with, maybe a few pieces of crockery if you're lucky, but besides the absolute essentials, that's all you've got. But hiking and camping in bothies is a very popular thing here, and I think part of the reason for that is because it helps people go back to the simpler times, go back to their roots. I know that generally speaking we have it so much better now than generations past did, and I don't want to be ungrateful for all the technology and luxuries that we have today. However, I do think sometimes that in being so immersed in having whatever we want just at our fingertips, it actually takes something away of a deeper sense of life satisfaction and makes us less grateful for things like a cup of tea or a hot meal or shelter from the raging wind outside. Second on our list is being content with a simple lifestyle. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, Scotland does have a reputation for folks being quite frugal. Now, sometimes that has translated quite negatively into stinginess and that sort of thing. Personally, I don't think that's a very fair observation, because any stinginess, so to speak, that people might perceive in Scottish people was historically almost always because people genuinely just did not have that much. It was historically not a wealthy country whatsoever, so of course people are going to be careful and make the best use of everything they've got. What this looks like practically is prioritising necessities over luxuries and having a clear idea of the difference. The minimalist approach to finance requires mindfulness and sacrifices. It isn't about being afraid to enjoy life. Rather, it's acknowledging that while money is important and useful, the extra on top of life essentials is an added bonus, not a need. In fact, by choosing to delay gratification and save, invest, or pay off debt, you'll likely end up happier in the long run. The next thing on the Scots Guide to Simple Living is to appreciate the little things in life. This one is all about gratitude. In Scottish folklore, there is a mythological creature known as a brownie, which is not the same as the cake. It is essentially a little fairy that wears a little green cap and little brown clothes and sneaks into people's houses at night and does all their housework for them, which sounds amazing in my opinion. I wish we still had this. However, there is a caveat to this. People were meant to leave out a little gift of food and drink to say thank you to the fairy. Well, unfortunately we don't have housework fairies anymore. This story serves as a reminder to be grateful for the little things in life. So far I've talked about being in the great outdoors, I've talked about living more simply, I've talked about being grateful for the little things. The final takeaway, which I hope if you take anything away from this, is to live more sustainably. I think that simple living, while it can benefit us personally or in our individual lives, and we should enjoy that and take advantage of that, don't think it should just stop there. I think it should move into an overflow where you're able to expand out and have a positive impact. Here in Scotland, there is so much beauty. I'm in the city, I'm looking at my window and there's just trees everywhere and there's a view of hills in the distance, and it's just a constant reminder of the nature that we need to protect. And it saddens me so much when I hear stories of folks who've gone out and travelled to these remote parts of Scotland to see the seals or see the bird life, and the beaches are just littered with plastic and so many animals are suffering. I think what really sums it up is a conversation I had with my pastor's daughter, who's about 9 years old, I want to say. We were looking out over the River Clyde here in Glasgow and looking down into the water, and there was all this plastic and rubbish floating past, and she looked at it really sadly, and then she looked up, and I'll never forget what she said. She was like, wouldn't people hate it if someone came into their home and started cluttering it up with rubbish? So why are they doing it to the animals' home? And it's so true, but I think that by living more simply and more sustainably, we can gradually make a difference. We can. I know there's a lot of negativity and the media are shouting at us about how awful climate change is, and I do think it's awful, and I do think that the truth should be portrayed, but also I think it's important to maintain a positive attitude and be visionary about it, and actually also consider, well, where have positive changes been? Because it's hearing stories of where there's a problem that's been solved that I think inspire us that we can actually make a difference, rather than just feeling really weighed down by it all, as I think many of us who care about it do. Anyway, all this to say, thank you for watching this Scots Guide to Simple Living. I know that a lot of what I've said, pretty much all of what I've said, I could have just called it a guide to simple living, but I tried to kind of give it a Scottish lens, because personally I find it really helpful wherein I can visualise and think of examples of specific places and specific things in order to be inspired in a really tangible way. I hope you found that to be the case. I have a lot more to say on the topic of simple living, particularly in the sense of Scottish history and Scottish culture. If you would be interested in a further episode of this, let me know in the comments down below, because I do have more that I could say, but I just didn't want this video to go on forever. If you're new here, well, thank you so much for watching all the way through. It means so much. Do be sure to like the video if you like the video, and subscribe for future calming, slow living Scottish content. Until next time, it was lovely to have you here.